If there's one thing that BioWare does well, it's dialogue. Sometimes optional dialogue has plot in it. Remember that plot is the causation or why of scenes in a story. Why characters do what they do, why they're here, their morals, feelings, desires, whatever it is that's pushing them along. One thing that is unique to Dragon Age Inquisition is the ability for the player to roleplay their Inquisitor character using the dialogue choices, specifically about their character's background. In RPGs, this is done at the start of the game usually, during character creation, which is similar to how old pen and paper games did it, whereas you had a character sheet you filled out. Defining the character in any capacity throughout the course of a game, or being within a scene-driven game, is referred to as narrative-based character creation or development. This is seen with the first follow-up conversation with Cassandra.
Where are you from?
The Circle of Magi at Ostwick. At least until the rebellion began.
Yes, I suppose that would have required you to stay on the move. Tell me, do you consider the Free Marches your home? Are you eager to go back?
If I ever go back, it'll be too soon.
Really? That is good to know, I suppose.
There are racial differences if you choose a Qunari who is also a mage.
No specific place. My mercenary band worked mostly in the Free Marches, however.
At least until you crossed the Waking Sea to reach the Conclave, I suppose. Tell me, do you consider the Free Marches your home? Are you eager to go back?
And then an elven mage.
I'm Dalish. I believe in our own gods.
And there's no room among your gods for one more?
My clan never stayed in one place for long, though we primarily roamed the Free Marches.
Oh? I didn't think your people roamed that far north. But clearly I'm mistaken. I'm told some members of your clan might still be alive. Do you intend to go back?
If I ever go back, it will be too soon.
Really? That is good to know, I suppose.
There are, of course, other permutations based on class. It's not a lot, but these little details add much to the role-playing and replayability of an entire game. It is a simple, appropriate way of tying in character background exposition, and possibly some plot, along with supporting character exposition, simply by having characters get to know each other. It would certainly help, though, if there was an unavoidable linear main plot event, or even some main plot reason, to go and talk to these people. The dialogue here is not really how it's done in linear stories, as that is a method of juxtaposing two moral attitudes against each other, and certainly not how you or I would speak normally. But for a game this size and of its type, normal conversations about who you are, that seems simple enough. It's not very creative, but it's about role-playing more than using appropriate forms of showcasing character conflict. This scenario is somewhat of a lull in the dramatic structure anyway. Unfortunately, whereas the ghosts of a character's past might be a great dramatic moment to bring up now, much to our dismay, the ghost of past narratives, that is bad writing, aka the retcon, from the Dragon Age series come back to haunt us, as it did in Dragon Age 2.
And the hero struck me down. I awoke later in agony. The ashes were gone. I can't explain how I survived.
And neither can I as I watched your body disintegrate. Neither can Gator since Dragon Age 2. Congratulations, Inquisition, you officially screwed up your narrative just by mentioning it. Addressing the problem is the first step. It isn't solving the problem.
You can't have been raised from the dead. That's absolutely... just... no.
Believe what you want. I'm still here.
Repeat after me, BioWare. Retcons are bad. You made your bed, you don't get to turn it into a lampshade. And getting back to the Inquisition, Mother Giselle provides some background information on the First Inquisition, something we desperately needed to understand before we decided to sign up for this thing. Not that we had a choice in the matter, or the method of how to be an Inquisitor, anyway.
I pray this Inquisition proves less brutal than its predecessor.
Can you tell me about the original Inquisition?
The original Inquisition was formed after the First Blight, well before the Chantry as we know it. The Inquisitors were hunters, zealots, who tracked and killed cultists and dangerous mages. As Andraste rose to power, the Inquisition came into her service. Instead of hunting those who would do harm, the Inquisitors spread the chant of light by force.
No wonder everyone is so nervous around us. Who chose that name?
Divine Justinia herself. I understand that this was not a popular decision. In any case, once the chant of light had spread far and wide, there was less need for zealots. The Inquisitors became the seekers of truth, and eventually the Templars.
So, the First Inquisition had multiple Inquisitors that hunted down cultists and dangerous mages. Okay, that sounds like a proper Inquisition. Interestingly, it was formed after the First Blight, so it was influenced by the events of fighting Darkspawn and a big evil dragon of some sort. It was also during the time of Andraste, and the Inquisitors became her militaristic servants who spread the chant of light through force. Kind of like Christ's 12 apostles if they were all thugs with broadswords. Eventually, the Andrastian religion became well known, and the Inquisitors weren't needed anymore. They then became the Seekers of Truth, and then they eventually became the Templars. That is a crazy summary of explaining the religion of the entire Dragon Age universe, and each of its main sects. And now we know why people are freaked out over the Inquisition. These kinds of details would have been nice if, of course, we had the option of choosing what kind of Inquisition we wanted to make. Sadly, on the main plotline, we're just thugs, and we didn't know why. Now we're in the footsteps of thugs who follow the Jesus character and cause people to take up religion and then form 2 military orders. That's rather interesting. Why didn't you tell us that in the first place, game?
Do you know what impresses me most about the original Inquisition? They fought horrific battles, killed and died for their cause, and when it was time, they put their swords away. Perhaps the name was Divine Justinia's message, that when the Inquisition is needed, it will strike without mercy. But when its work is done, it will put its sword away.
This is yet another interesting attitude to take in regards to what the Inquisition of old was like and how we should be thinking of ourselves. But our character doesn't really feel like a part of anything now. They're just sort of here talking to a woman about the past. Cassandra made the Inquisition because Justinia told her to. Everyone just went along with that. There's very little plot here aside from we had a life-threatening condition on our hand and it doesn't really bother us anymore. But imagine if it did bother us and we didn't know what we were getting into. That might have been a bit more worthwhile. Everything's just so blasé right now. Remember, all this exposition is optional. There's like an entire other story full of history, which is much more interesting than the one we're currently in. Just hearing that excerpt from Mother Giselle makes me wish this game took place during the First Inquisition. Meeting the first Grey Wardens or the Proto-Grey Wardens, who were riding on griffins, hunting heretics down, and converting people, and fighting or discovering the first desire demons, or whatever. Unfortunately, all this exposition has zero bearing on the plot, and instead of illuminating the main character's attitude or understanding of themselves, instead of providing choices or some moral conflicts, it's just info. So why is it in Dragon Age Origins the history and culture of being a Grey Warden, something tied into your origin story, was incorporated and told with an intro and done so well, whereas here it's told on the side and ultimately only in passing and has nothing to do with your character. It's just there. This is not how you tell a subplot, nor is it how you provide historical exposition on an organization whose story is titled after itself. Right, anyway, if you did choose a human character, and I'm not going into the others because they're not really important here, Josephine goes into the Inquisitor's family history, referring to you as Lord Trevelyan. She wishes to use your family connections to give the Inquisition some political clout, maybe? This is a good way of showcasing her as a diplomat, and that's her role, while providing some background lore. It's not talked about in this conversation here, but it turns out that you were sent to the Conclave to aid in the proceedings of stopping the Mage Templar War on behalf of your family, since you were raised to be an Andrastian, and the Trevelyans have strong ties to the Templars. It's not entirely different from the intro to Dragon Age 2, where you're fleeing the country with your family. Here, if you're a mage, Templars tried to kill you, and you were forced to flee and join the Mage Rebellion. This info is kind of important to know, considering our main character has amnesia, but it's ultimately useless because of one fatal problem: conflict or lack thereof. And when we do learn about it in the later future, it's kind of moot. We really need to know as much as we could about our character conflicts and their issues at the start. Exposition for the sake of it is nice, but if it doesn't mean anything, So what? We don't know our character's motivations yet, aside from some potential family ties, whatever might have happened in the Circle of Magi you were from. You get to choose these options, but they ultimately motivate nothing. They don't really have any conflict with anyone here, and they're just there. I'm not going to get into all the other branches of questions and every character type you have, because they don't really matter to anything. And all of this would have been fixed if, well, A, they incorporated these elements as conflicts a lot sooner, or at least mentioned, or B, done away with this lame blank slate hero character entirely and just focused on the giant cast we already have, much like another great game did. Funny how I can tell you off the top of my head why each of the characters are in that game, and most of the characters here have about as much reason to be here as this guy. Anyway, we then have Solas, and thank you Patrick Weeks for doing a bang-up job of removing all mystery out of the character. Here we go, in case you missed how blatantly obvious this is.
Closing the breach is our primary goal, but I hope we might also discover what was used to create it. Any artifact of such power is dangerous. The destruction of the Conclave proves that much.
So why does Solas believe the destruction of the Conclave was caused by an artifact? Maybe it's just a theory of his. Keep in mind, nothing has prompted this line of dialogue. He's just naturally talking to you after you had your first cinematic conversation with him. There was no mention of contemplating what caused the breach. This is a casual conversation.
You don't think whatever created the explosion was destroyed in the blast?
You survived, did you not? The artifact that created the breach is unlike anything seen in this age. I will not believe it destroyed until I see the shattered fragments with my own eyes.
Again, why does Solas believe the breach was created by an artifact? How would he know an artifact that did that would be unlike anything seen in this age? How could he not believe such a supposed artifact could be destroyed until he sees the fragments of such a thing? Where is he getting this knowledge of the composition of a theoretical artifact? If this was a passing theory, why is he speaking with the form of grammar called the definitive noun?
We would do well to try to recover whatever created the breach.
Okay, is the Inquisitor just making small talk here? Clearly, he has no knowledge of it, but maybe he's just going along with whatever Solas just said. Again, all this conversation has no stake in anything, no bearing, no conflict. It's just casual small talk.
Liliana's people have scoured the area near the blast and found nothing. Whatever the artifact was, it is no longer there.
Okay, for the third time, how do you know an artifact made the breach? It could have been a mage just on power alone, a demon, a natural, a supernatural event. All sorts of magical things. Why is it an object? To make a character mysterious, you need to use subtlety. And if this is foreshadowing, this isn't how you do it.